So the last time I did one of these was only about a week ago, and people told me how grateful they were that I did, since it was so close to Christmas and it gave them gift ideas. Originally, I wanted to do something different this week, but that made me realize how useful it would be to get some recommendations for Christmas. So welcome to the week of recommends. And by week, I mean 2 days because of my currently reduced output. This time, I'm going to show you what masterpieces and masterpiece-alike figures I think are top tier and worthy of being in any collection. I'm going to try to keep these recommendations limited to one figure per set, since if you are willing to get these figures as a gift, the odds of you being willing to drop over $600 or more is limited. I'm also going to try to keep this limited to figures who aren't in the multiple hundreds of dollars on their own for the same reasons, so Fans Toys can go screw itself. Not that they'd be getting recommended either way. I'm going to be doing the same type of photography I did last time, where I just posed the figures a bunch. This time, actually, because a lot of people really liked that. I had multiple people tell me last time that showing off the posing for the whole of each segment really sold them on wanting the figures. I wasn't a fan of doing that since it feels too low effort for what I like to do, since I always want to produce videos at the highest level of quality. But if it's effective, then it's effective, and it doesn't matter that it's not as much work as normal. So welcome to PerspectiveEnd Recommends Masterpiece Edition. And the first one, I'm not even going to beat around the bush. If you know my channel, then you know this figure is going to be on here. I could save it for a later reveal, the grand final one, but instead, I'm just going to show you the most important one first. No matter what you do, for Christmas, gift someone a Masterpiece Soundwave. You might think that this is going to be an expensive figure, since it's an older masterpiece that's no longer in print. And you'd be right about that if you are only willing to buy an official copy off the secondary market like eBay. But this is a figure that has been knocked off time and again, and there's nothing wrong with buying knockoffs when the official one is no longer in print. Hasbro gets exactly as much none of your money if you buy it off a KO'er as if you pay 3 times its value to some scalper on eBay. Now you may be worried about the quality of it, since for the longest time knockoffs have held a terrible reputation, deservedly so. But in the last decade, KO companies have really stepped up their game. Nowadays, knockoff companies working in the masterpiece field tend to be of equal quality, barely, and I mean barely lesser quality, or in some cases, higher quality. And secondly, it doesn't matter. It does not matter in the face of this figure. A knockoff of this thing could have every joint be loose to the point where it is physically impossible to hold position, the whole thing could be spaghetti, and I would still say that it's worth over $100. This is easily the best figure Masterpiece has ever produced, and assuredly at this point will ever produce. A figure so good, everyone knows not to compete with it. Only in the last few months has anyone even tried, with Fans Toys releasing their take on a Masterpiece Soundwave under a different name. And the reviews are in. No one likes it more. Even the most high on their own fumes Fans Toys fanatics can't bring themselves to pretend that the acoustic wave is better. And those people will suck down anything Fans Toys gives them and say it's the best thing ever. This thing doesn't look as blindingly cartoon accurate as that, but oh well, because honestly this thing looks cooler. The only ways to improve this are to give it an ab crunch, knees that bend more than a 90, ankles that can tilt up as well as down, and thicken up the biceps a bit because they're a little too thin. That's it. Those are the only ways you can improve this figure in any meaningful capacity. The only ways. A lot of people fault this thing for having legs that don't go backwards. But what do you call this? So what if I'm using the forwards tilt backwards? It's specifically designed to do this. That joint can spin any direction you'd like the leg to be able to bend. Plus, the transformation on this is probably the best transformation of all time. While not on camera, I've timed myself doing this conversion and my record is 24 seconds to get to alt mode. Now you might hear that and say that it sounds too simple, but no, it's just doing what it needs to do without any extra bullshit in the most sublime way possible. And then the alt mode is perfect, making the Fans Toys offering look like a joke. This is one of the best figures ever made, period, end of sentence. If you want to get someone into the Masterpiece line, get them this figure for Christmas. Just make it clear to them that it's all downhill from here. Sometimes it's not very far downhill. Sometimes that drop-off isn't steep at all. But you aren't going to find a more enjoyable figure than this. It's just not going to happen. If I can do nothing else with this video, I want to convince you to get a Masterpiece Soundwave. Now, for the next figure, I'm at a bit of an impasse here, because I really want to recommend that you buy the Mastermind Creations Assaultus. It's hands down the best combiner of all time. It's made of 5 Masterpiece-style figures that are the most accurate figures of those characters that have ever been released. They pose fantastically. Combined mode poses fantastically. Transformations are all good to great. The vehicle modes are as accurate as the robot modes. Combining the figures is a joy. It's actually fun to combine a combiner. Perish the thought. And aside from some coloring issues in combined mode, it's the most accurate Bruticus of all the sets out there. Almost everything about this set is as good as it can get. This is yet another one of those times where everyone who's picked this up on my recommendation has messaged me later in gratitude. But I'm not here to tell you to break the bank for Christmas. Instead, I'm only going to recommend one of those figures. And you might think you know which one I'm going to say. And you'd be wrong. Even if Blastoff is the figure I gave the title of best of the set, I don't think that's the figure people should start on. Ultimately, I'm torn between recommending either the Onslaught or Brawl, because they are the most accessible figures in the set. They will be the figures that newcomers can get the hang of the easiest. The other 3 have foibles that will make them less friendly to anyone who starts with them. All 3 of them have difficult transformations, with Blastoff having hard to unlock panels, Swindle having tolerances beyond too tight, and Vortex requiring some plastic flexing to transform. Thankfully, people have told me that later releases of that figure no longer have the problem where the head falls off for no reason. I have been unable to verify these rumors, but if the head can stay pegged on, that's a huge improvement. Ultimately, I'm going to choose Brawl. Onslaught's transformation, while fun, is mostly stuff you've seen before, even on Chug figures, while Brawl has a unique conversion with interesting steps. He also has the most posability, and his tank mode with its buttery smooth ratcheted cannon is a wonder to the touch. All these figures are good on their own, to the point where they don't even need the others unless you really want to complete the combiner, but you can just buy your favorite of this set. But Brawl is just the one that's the easiest to start with, and it winds up being most people's favorite. It looks great, poses well above average, transformation is unique, fun, and not frustrating, and the alt mode is awesome. You can say basically the same for the rest of the set, but here is probably the most so. This set is so good that even though I don't care about Defensor, I need the MMC version that's on the horizon. There, that's the review. Figure so good it made me care about Defensor. Next up for Christmas, you should get someone a Magic Square Light of Freedom. Any version really. They made several. This figure is getting harder and harder to find as time goes on, and I understand why. They've not reprinted it in a while, and it's easily the best G1 Optimus Prime on the market, so the secondary market is starting to get up there in price. But I've not really seen any of these selling for over $200 as of yet. If it crosses that line at some point, I get it. This figure is nearly perfect. The sculpt is right up there with the most accurate Prime sculpts, but even more crucially, the posability is massively better than average. The only figures I have that pose better than this are MMC figures that are in the runnings for the most posable figures of all time non-transforming category. And yet they also transform because MMC are gods. And the materials used here, along with the paint, are great too. Even if I didn't care about the accuracy, I'd still love looking at this thing because it's so damn pretty. So this is a well-built, incredibly accurate figure with good materials, amazing posing, a great alt mode that some people take issue with due to the bed of the truck looking a bit like pants, and a god-tier transformation. This is not a beginner's transformation. This is a high, intermediate to low expert transformation. And there's still just no bullshit about it. There's no parts forming. The only full forming is the understandable type where they used it to mass shift the truck mode gas tanks down to like 1/5 the size they are in vehicle mode, and just everything about it is so clever and satisfying. There is nothing to get in the way of how much fun this transformation is. It does what it needs to do, and it doesn't overcomplicate anything. Everything about this figure is a blast. So there was another figure I was going to recommend to you all. I've yet to do a review of it despite having it for a good long while, and I thought it would be really cool to debut it here. But looking into it, it's an older figure, and while they're doing yet another run of this, right now it's currently only on pre-order and not available much anywhere else. So I'm going to hold off till I do an actual review of this figure, as I don't want to show you something that you should get for Christmas that you can't get for Christmas. Meaning this video is only going to have 4 recommendations in it. A little sparse, unless you take my advice and get the whole Assaultus set, but hey, 4 masterpieces is more than enough, because it's not like you guys are made of money. So lastly, you should put an MMC Optus Pexus under the tree. This thing is getting recommended for one reason alone. Is it super accurate to the depiction of the character it's trying to be? No. Does it have a good transformation? No. Does it have an accurate alt mode? No. Does it have a good alt mode? It gets the job done, even if it is a bit basic. What this thing does more than anything else is pose, and it doesn't break the bank like the Eris Cultor because this wasn't a limited run figure only available on some site no one knows, so it's not been scalped to hell. But even if it has some serious accuracy fumbles, the robot mode looks sick as hell, and the posing is just a cut above. It could use a little better of a forward butterfly and some ankle rotations, but outside that, this thing is probably more articulated than you are. And because of the sculpt, all of the sick poses you can get this thing into are amplified, so no matter what, this guy always looks great. The regular red version may be a bit difficult to find right now, but the Nemesis version sure isn't. And once again, MMC are the best because their prices are just so reasonable. This is a little smaller than most MP scaled figures, but it's still worth that price in spades. Boy, I didn't realize how trying to limit my recommendations to affordable figures would really hamper the number of figures I could show off. There were plenty more MPs that I could recommend, but only for those who have a whole lot of money to burn. For everyone else, it would just be, here are a bunch of figures you are never going to get. Ultimately, I think this is a pretty solid list, though I do regret having to put 2 Optimuses on it. I think it would have been better if they were all different characters. But hey, at least there's something on here for all of you anti-G1ers. Hope this helps, and Merry Christmas. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know you know what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.